my dear friends. Today I'm going to talk about Aristotle. Aristotle was a Greek philosopher. At the age of 17, he was sent to Athens, the intellectual center of the world. He studied under Plato in the academy, and he is the founder of Lyceum and the teacher and mentor of Alexander the Great. His most famous work is the Poetics. Poetics is an indirect reply given by Aristotle to the charges leveled against by Plato. According to Plato, poetry is an imitation of an imitation twice removed from reality. And Aristotle's concept of mimesis which means imitation. Aristotle's concept of mimesis is completely different from Plato's concept of mimesis. Aristotle believes that a poet is not merely imitating the nature. Instead, he goes beyond what he sees and brings out the ideal before us. This idealization is a new creation. So, mimesis is not mere imitation, instead, it is recreation.
Let's have a look into the important points discussed in Poetics. Poetics is a collection of lectures delivered by Aristotle which deals with the principles of poetic art in general and tragedy in particular. It contains 26 chapters, and chapters 1 to 5 poetry, different kinds of poetry, chapters 6 to 19 discussion of tragedy, chapters 20 to 22 discussion of poetic diction, style, etc., and chapter 23 deals with discussion of narrative poetry and tragedy. Chapters 25 Aristotle's reply against the objections against poetry, and chapter 24 and 26 deals with epic and its comparison with tragedy. Let's see the definition of tragedy. Tragedy then is an imitation of an action that is serious, complete, and of a certain magnitude, in language embellished with each kind of artistic ornament, the several kinds of being found in separate parts of the play in the form of action, not in narrative, with incidents arousing pity and fear to accomplish its catharsis of such emotion. Now let's take a look at the definition in detail. Tragedy is an imitation of an action. Imitation means idealization or creation of human action, physical or mental action. So a tragedy should be in the form of action, not in the form of narration. And tragedy deals with a serious action which affects a group or a family as a whole. So only such emotions were dealt in tragedy. The action should be complete, which means that it must have a beginning, middle, and an end. It must be like an organism. As an organism develops, gradually the plot of tragedy must develop. And Aristotle says that the plot must be long enough for the natural and logical development and short enough to make the human remembrance sustain the beginning. And he has used a phrase, a single revolution of the sun. The medium of imitation is the use of embellished language. In a tragedy, verse was the language of the serious people and prose was the language used by the light characters and music was the language of the chorus. Next is the manner of imitation. As we know, drama is a visual art, so it should be presented in the form of action, not in the form of narration. Next is the function of imitation. A plot which is the soul of tragedy, and it must arouse pity and fear. And pity and fear are the two emotions evoked for catharsis. Catharsis is a term used by Aristotle in the Poetics to describe the effects of true tragedy on the spectators. It's a Greek word meaning purgation, cleansing, or purification. Aristotle believes that cleansing our emotions such as pity and fear is the major function of a tragedy. The exact meaning of the term catharsis has been a critical debate over centuries, and purgation is a medicinal or a pathological term. Pity and fear are aroused in order to release other excess emotions such as greed, anger, etc. And catharsis has a function to save human beings from stress and tension. Purification has a moral function. When we experience the feeling of a tragic hero, we try to re-examine our own activities and the audience think about his own undoings, and tragedy inspires a virtuous life or it hinders us from doing sins. Aristotle enumerates six constituent elements of a tragedy and it is arranged in the order of importance. The first one is plot, character, thought, diction, song, and spectacle. First, look at plot. According to Aristotle, a plot is the soul of tragedy, and a plot means a logical and an inevitable sequence of events. It should have a beginning, middle, and an end. And a plot should be complete like a living organism. And he has divided plot into two categories: simple plot and complex plot. Simple plot that develops naturally without peripeteia or anagnorisis, and complex plot which has peripeteia and anagnorisis. Let's see what is peripeteia. Peripeteia, which means a sudden reversal of fortune. So let's see an example. When Hamlet understood the truth from his father's ghost, it became a sudden reversal of his fortune. And next is anagnorisis. Anagnorisis means discovery. And as the word implies, a change from ignorance to knowledge. For example, in the play Othello, Othello killed Desdemona, but all on a sudden he realized the truth, and this was the plot made by Iago, and then he understood that Desdemona was faithful. Then his trouble increased, and that led him to his own end. And Aristotle says that a tragic play must have these peripeteia and anagnorisis. There are three unities established in a dramatic criticism. The first one is unity of action. Aristotle stressed that a plot should have unity of action. A plot should incorporate only those actions connected with each other, which means a tragedy should have only one principal action. And Aristotle is against a plurality of action, subplots, and tragicomedy. The next one is unity of time. According to Aristotle, the action of the play should not be for several days or years. On the other hand, it should confine itself to a single revolution of the sun. Next is unity of place, and Aristotle never mentioned anything about unity of place. He says that the epic may narrate several actions taking place simultaneously at different places, but this is not possible in the case of tragedy. And unity of place was later attributed by Renaissance and neoclassical critics to Aristotle. Which are the two parts of a plot? In terms of the progression of the plot, Aristotle divides the tragedy into two parts: complication and unraveling, or dynamo. And the complication extends from the beginning of the play to the moment of peripeteia or anagnorisis, which means the turning point of the plot. And dynamo includes the turning point and extends to the conclusion of the play. Next element of a tragedy is characters. According to Aristotle, a tragic hero must have four qualities. The first one is goodness. A tragic hero may be morally good, but not a perfect man. And according to the pagan belief, goodness means courage, adventure, etc. And according to Christians, he must be a man of spirituality. And according to Greeks, tragic hero must have some heroic qualities. And this goodness is critically debated for many years. Next one is appropriateness. It means a tragic hero should be act according to his status. A king must be king in his activity and speech. The third one is likeness. There should be a one-to-one correspondence between the actual life or the lived life and the life presented before us. The audience must feel that it happens. The hero must be true to life, and they must have joys and sorrows, virtues and weakness, love and hatred, etc. The last quality is consistency. It means the hero should be consistent from beginning till end and there should be no sudden change in character. The villain must be a villain from beginning to end. Aristotle introduced the term hamartia in Poetics to describe a character's tragic flaw or mistake in judgment that ultimately leads to the downfall. The change in the hero's fortune must be not from misery to happiness, but on the contrary, from happiness to misery. The word hamartia can be translated as mistake, frailty, weakness, tragic flaw, etc. And Aristotle sees hamartia not as a moral sin but as an error. So let's see a few examples. Procrastination in Hamlet, jealousy in Othello, voracious ambition in Macbeth, and arrogance and excessive pride in King Lear are a few examples of hamartia in Shakespeare's well-famous tragedies. Next element of a tragedy is thought. Thought is the inner feeling that goes on in the mind of the character, and thought should be a unified aspect of a play. Next is diction. It is the expression of meaning in words, and thought is verbally communicated through diction. It includes prose, verse, rhythm, long speeches, etc. Next is melody. It refers to the collective sound in a play and the musical element of chorus, and chorus is an integral part of the play. The last element of a tragedy is spectacle. It contributes sensory effects to the play. It includes costume, scenery, the gestures, and sound of the actors. The power of tragedy is not only dependent upon its performers, and it can also be read as a text. That is why spectacle is included as the last element of a tragedy. Let's have a brief discussion on the quantitative elements of a tragedy. The first one is prologue. Prologue is the entire part of the play between the beginning and the entrance song. Next is episode. It is one complete session between two choral songs and it's having a modern equivalent of act. Next is exort. It is that entire part of the play after the last choral song. Next is parode. Parode is the entrance song of the chorus. And the last one is stasimen. Stasimen is all the choric songs of the play. Chapters 24 and 26 of Poetics is a discussion of the epic and comparison with tragedy. Let's see the characteristics of an epic. An epic must have unity of action and it includes simple and complex characters and their failures. Epic has the same parts of a tragedy except melody and spectacle. It employs same thought and diction. And here is the difference between tragedy and epic. Epic is more narrative rather than action, and length of the epic is longer than tragedy, and only language and rhythm are used as media. According to Aristotle, the highest form of poetic art is tragedy.
Here ends the video. I have completed discussion of almost all important aspects of the politics. And I am sure you are studying well for your exams. So see you again with yet another video.